What if we treated social media harm the same way we treat patient safety? Not as something abstract, not as something we hope people just figure out, but as a real, preventable risk that we actively train people to recognize and respond to. Because right now, social media is shaping behavior, decision-making, and mental health in ways that look a lot like the risks we already manage in healthcare. And that means we may already have the tools to address it. Across the country, there's growing pressure to address the impact of social media, especially on younger populations. We're seeing lawsuits, we're seeing proposed regulations, and we're seeing increasing concern about mental health outcomes tied to digital environments. But here's the challenge. Most of the current conversation is focused on restriction, limiting access, setting boundaries, assigning responsibility. Those are important. But in healthcare, we've learned something critical. You don't reduce harm just by controlling exposure. You reduce harm by preparing people to recognize risk in real time. That's where simulation comes in. In healthcare, we don't wait for a crisis to teach someone how to respond to it. We simulate it. We create scenarios where learners experience pressure, ambiguity, and uncertainty, so they can build the skills to act when it matters. Now imagine applying that same approach to social media harm. Instead of telling someone what cyberbullying looks like, you place them inside a scenario where it's unfolding. Instead of warning about misinformation, you ask them to make decisions in a moment where the information is incomplete or misleading. Simulation turns passive awareness into active recognition. Let's look at what this could actually look like. The first scenario we have in mind is cyberbullying escalation. A learner observes a group chat where the tone shifts, subtle at first, then increasingly targeted. Their role is not just to notice it, but to decide, when does this become harm? And what action is appropriate? This reinforces the ability to intervene early in escalating situations before they result in measurable psychological or team-based harm. A powerful second scenario is misinformation and health decisions. A participant is presented with conflicting information about a health issue circulating online. They must decide what to trust, what to question, and whether to act or pause. This develops critical thinking under uncertainty, particularly when decisions must be made without complete or fully reliable information. A third scenario is behavioral warning signs. A team member in a workplace setting begins to show changes, withdrawal, distraction, emotional volatility, linked to online interactions. The learner has to recognize the signal and determine how to respond appropriately. This emphasizes early recognition of subtle behavioral changes that may indicate deeper risk requiring timely and supportive intervention. These are not theoretical discussions. They are structured experiences that mirror the complexity people face every day. This isn't limited to healthcare. Every workplace is now a digital environment. Employees are constantly interacting with information, communication platforms, and social dynamics that extend beyond physical space. That creates a new category of risk: digital behavior influencing real-world performance, well-being, and safety. Organizations already train for harassment, communication breakdowns, and crisis response. But those risks are no longer confined to physical spaces. They're emerging earlier, faster, and often less visibly in digital environments that organizations are not fully prepared to address. Simulation allows them to extend that training into the digital space, not by policing behavior, but by building awareness and judgment. Because the goal is not control, the goal is recognition. And this is where the most important learning happens: the debrief. In simulation, the scenario is just the starting point. The real impact comes from reflecting on what happened. In these types of scenarios, the debrief focuses on two key areas. First, emotional processing, by asking questions like, how did that situation feel? What made it difficult to act? What hesitation showed up? Because in both healthcare and digital environments, emotion often drives behavior more than logic. Second, we train for bias recognition with questions like, what assumptions influence decisions? What signals were missed or dismissed? These conversations help learners understand not just they did, but they did it. And that's what leads to meaningful change. If we continue to treat social media harm as something outside of structured learning, we limit our ability to respond to it effectively. But if we start to approach it the same way we approach patient safety, as a system of risks that can be anticipated, practiced, and improved, then simulation becomes a powerful tool far beyond healthcare. It becomes a way to prepare people for the environments they're already navigating every day. Not just to avoid harm, but to recognize it early and respond with intention. Because the reality is this: the risks may be new, but the way we prepare people to handle them doesn't have to be.